Tito's Handmade Vodka is America's favorite vodka for a reason. From the first legal distillery in Texas, Tito's is 6 times distilled till it's just right. And naturally gluten-free, making it a high-quality spirit that mixes with just about anything. From the smoothest martinis to the best Bloody Marys. Tito's is known for giving back, teaming up with nonprofits to serve its communities and do good for dogs. Make your next cocktail with Tito's. Distilled and bottled by 5th Generation Inc., Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume. Savor responsibly.
At Blinds.com, it's not just about window treatments. It's about you, your style, your space, your way. Whether you DIY or want the pros to handle it all, you'll have the confidence of knowing it's done right. From free expert design help to our 100% satisfaction guarantee, everything we do is made to fit your life and your windows. Because at Blinds.com, the only thing we treat better than windows is you. Visit Blinds.com now for up to 50% off site-wide, plus a professional measure at no cost. Rules and restrictions apply.
Hello everybody and welcome to 3D Printing Basics. I just wanted to let you know that if you're interested in getting every single episode a week before its release and ad-free, then please head over to my Patreon. The link will be in the show notes, and like I said, you can get every single episode ad-free and a week before its initial release date. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope you like this episode. Hello and welcome back to 3D Printing Basics. This is episode number 81, and in this week's episode I wanted to go over some of the issues that I've been having 3D printing and some of the ways that I am trying to solve them, because I feel like this past week especially I've been having a lot more problems than normal, so I figured I should go over them, share them with you, see if you guys can relate, and see if maybe even if you guys have some solutions for me, because there are definitely some issues that even I don't know how to solve. With that being said, I just wanted to thank you guys for the support, and let's jump right into this episode. Alright, so the first main issue that I wanted to go over is something that just happened yesterday, and that's on my pretty new Sovol SV08. I've had no issues with it so far, but I was printing some ASA, which for those of you that don't know, it is a spin-off basically of ABS. It's just a little bit better. I prefer it because it's got the same temperature resistance, but it has better UV resistance, so that out in the sun it's going to last a little better. And it also doesn't smell when you are printing it. For those of you that haven't printed ABS, it stinks. It smells so bad, and the fumes are actually toxic. You should not be breathing them in. And ASA, it doesn't stink. I can't say for sure whether the fumes that come off of it, even if you can't smell them, are still not good for you. I would definitely say don't stand next to your 3D printer breathing it in all day, no matter what you're printing. But it definitely doesn't stink as bad as ABS. It doesn't stink at all, and it's just a lot better for me. But with that being said, I was printing it on my Sovol SV08, and I was having a lot of problems with layer adhesion. I was printing a very large print. I think the overall runtime was going to be slightly under 2 days, maybe 1 day and 20 hours. But as I kept getting into it, I would just keep having issues with layer adhesion. There would be layers that looked like they were almost entirely skipped, and it just looked like the print failed every single time. I couldn't figure out what was going on, and it was a super simple oversight, something that I should have considered but didn't even think about. Because my 3D printing room is temperature controlled, I didn't think that I needed an enclosure to print the ASA and get good results. Now, with that being said, every time I've printed ASA before this, I've printed in my Bambu Labs X1C, which is fully enclosed, and I had no issues there. And so it's completely skipped my mind that the enclosure is going to help it print better. And I just went ahead and printed it on my SV08 without an enclosure. It was just open space. And of course it failed. And you might be thinking, Tyler, obviously that's going to not work. Why didn't you think about that? And to be honest, I don't know. Honestly, I don't even know what I was thinking. I just thought that I would print it and that it would work and I would have no issues. But after 2 failed attempts, I finally decided to really look into it. I stopped myself. I was rushing into it. I stopped myself. I took a second. I thought about what was going on. And then, it hit me like a truck. Obviously, that light bulb moment of, oh, obviously this isn't working because there's no enclosure. And so then I had the enclosure, I just hadn't put it on yet because I had just gotten this printer and I wanted to get it working as soon as possible. I put the enclosure on and I'm actually printing the ASA right now as I make this episode. And so far it's going pretty well. And so I'm pretty happy with it. It definitely seems like that was the issue. So anytime, that's just a good tip for anybody moving forward. If you're printing pretty much anything above the heat sensitivity of like PETG, so if you're printing anything other than PLA or PETG, chances are it's going to work better if you have an enclosed printer, and you don't even need to be fully enclosed. I've printed prints on my open printers before with just cardboard surrounding loosely the area, and that seemed to help a lot. So you just need a pretty enclosed area. It doesn't have to be airtight, but that's going to help these high temperature filaments print a lot better, especially with that layer adhesion. So that's definitely something to think about. I hope you guys are able to learn something from that. And yeah, so let's move on to the next issue that I've been having. Hello, everybody. I'll keep this short, but I just want to let you guys know that there is no sponsor again for this week's episode, but you can head over to my Patreon and get every single episode a week early and also get access to an exclusive monthly bonus episode. The link will be in the description. You can support me and get exclusive benefits at the same time. Thank you guys so much for listening, and right back to the episode we go. All right, now I wanted to talk about the next problem that I'm having with 3D printing, and I would say that this problem is pretty significant. I'm doing a job for a customer that involves me printing 50 parts out of ABS, and unfortunately that's as far as I can describe it, but it is out of ABS. And I know I just said ABS, it's stinky, it's not great. You should probably use ASA if you can, and I did try to advocate for ASA, but unfortunately ABS, for its food safe certification, is why we had to go with it. And overall, it's a fine filament to print with if you could just not be in there while it's printing. Overall, it prints pretty good if you have it in an enclosed space. And yeah, so that's not the problem. The problem that I'm having with it is when I take it off of the PEI sheets. I'm using just my Bambu Labs printers to print it, and the classic PEI textured base plate. And every time I take it off of the build plate, there seems to be these white marks or residue of some kind that is on the bottom of each print. And the prints are black, so it's pretty obvious or pretty ugly when these white marks show up on the bottom of these prints. And normally when I have issues like this, like discoloration in prints, I just take a blowtorch or a heat gun to it, and that sort of remelts the plastic a little bit and brings it back to its original color, and then it rehardens back to the color that I want it to be. And so I tried that on the first of these, and it didn't work. It did work. It melted the plastic, but I'm printing with only a 5% cubic infill, and so that caused the bottom parts that weren't supported to droop and then show the sort of pattern that the infill leaves. And overall, it looks really bad. It looks not professional at all, and these parts are going to be sold in stores, so overall they need to be a certain quality, and the quality that I achieved after getting rid of the white marks was not store quality at all. So that is actually something that I'm still struggling with. I've tried the blowtorch. I've tried putting some Magigoo or bed adhesives on the build plate itself, which seems to help. I don't know if that barrier, so to speak, between the PEI sheet and the printed part itself helps with getting the white marks off of there. I've tried washing it off with some hot water, which didn't really work, and then I've tried the heat gun, which also resulted in the same kind of droopiness or sagging from those printed parts, or from the parts that were not supported by the 5% infill. And so, yeah, that's going to be a pretty big problem. I feel like I'm getting down to the point where I could just paint the bottom of each piece. I'm not sure if that is going to be something that is reliable. I've never painted a 3D printed part before. I think it's probably going to work just fine if I need to get there, but overall, I would love to not have to do that. So yeah, right now I'm just trying to figure out some options. If it's the PEI textured build plate itself that's causing the problem, or if this is just something that happens with ABS a lot. I can't definitely say that I don't have this problem when I'm using other materials. Sometimes if I'm printing PLA a lot in the same spot and I'm using the same PEI textured sheet for a long time, then that can start to come up, but then I usually just wash them and then there's no problems. But in this case, I've washed this sheet many times, and I wash it and then immediately put it back on, and then the very first print that I'm printing on, it still has that problem. So this is definitely something that I kind of stumped with. I'm not super sure what to do here, and I would love to hear your guys' feedback. Feel free to leave a comment on this episode, or you can, go to my Patreon. You can leave a comment there. You can email me. You can go to my website, 3dprintingbasicspod.com, and you can reach out there. There's lots of avenues to contact me, and I would love to hear your guys' opinions or feedback on how I can solve this problem, because honestly, I'm not super sure at this point. I feel like I've tried everything that I usually do, and it's still not working, and besides my research, I'm going to keep trying things. So yeah, that is definitely the biggest problem that I'm probably having with 3D printing right now, is those white marks. I'm just not too sure how to get rid of them. All right, the third and final problem that I want to go over is in regards to SLA printing, so resin printing. I have been doing quite a bit of resin printing lately for customers. I would definitely say that it's getting more and more popular. And the problems that I'm having are with the exposure times. So there have been quite a few cases where I have long SLA prints that are really highly detailed. And I print them, I leave them overnight, or I leave them for a long period of time, and I come back and there's quite literally nothing on the build plate. And what I end up finding is that on the sheet on the bottom of the resin vat is an outline of the print itself, and it's usually a millimeter or two thick, and it's almost like it cured on the sheet and not on the actual build plate, and then as the print ran through, it just kind of cured the same layer on the bottom of the resin vat over and over and over again. And I've tried tweaking my exposure time, because when I researched it, that seemed to be the main problem. I've done 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, even a minute of first layer exposure time to make sure that it really sticks to that build plate and doesn't come off at all and ruin my prints. But I haven't been able to find any kind of consistency yet when it comes to that setting. I think I did 45 seconds for a long time, but recently that has become a problem too. It just doesn't seem to be working, and I've had success with each of those four settings, the 15, 30, 45 seconds, a minute. I've had success printing with each one of those different settings, but I've also had failures at each one of those settings. So I'm unsure if I need to make the first layer exposure time even longer, or if I need to make it shorter, if it needs to be somewhere in between. I'm just not sure of what's going on there. And I'm trying to do more research, trying to get a little better at SLA printing, because it is not something that I'm super familiar or comfortable with. But if anybody has any advice for me, anybody maybe is an expert or does a lot of SLA printing, I would definitely really appreciate the help. If it helps you at all, I'm using a Saturn IV Ultra from Elegoo, and I'm using a pretty engineering grade resin, which I think is causing a lot of the problems. I'm using a Seriatech Blue Lava Black. That is the resin that I'm using, which is classified as engineering grade, and so I think that might be why I'm having such a problem, is because the filament is a little bit tougher to print with. But if you guys have any advice for me, I would definitely really appreciate it, because I can't work with prints that fail. When there's nothing there, there's just nothing I can work with. So if prints work and there's some slight defects, I can often work with it and be able to make it work. But if nothing prints, then obviously there's nothing to work with. So yeah, I would appreciate any feedback that you guys have on that. But yeah, those are kind of the issues that I've been struggling with in 3D printing, and I hope that this goes as a lesson to show you guys that just because I make this podcast and I don't know what you guys think of me, I hope you don't think I'm an expert of any kind, because I absolutely am not. But just because I do a lot of research on 3D printing and I have a lot of experience in 3D printing doesn't mean I also don't have struggles of my own. As you just heard, I have lots of struggles, and 3D printing is kind of the tale of how you get along and how you kind of bounce back from these issues. And it's just a game of constantly evolving your methods and your strategies to be able to work around these issues and be able to adapt to them. So that is definitely something that I like about 3D printing, is there's always a new challenge coming your way, whether it's a new type of 3D printing, whether it's, a new filament that is all the rage but still has its own problems with you to figure out. But there is always room to improve in 3D printing, and there is always room to struggle. So make sure you guys keep that in mind when you are 3D printing. Just because something is working the first time or even the 10th or 100th time doesn't mean it's going to work the next time. So always be on your toes there. With that being said, that's all I have for you guys today. Remember, if you would like to get each episode ad-free and support me, you can listen on Patreon. I also just came out with a new monthly bonus episode for the first time, so I'm really happy with that. I'm very excited. That is for my upper tier supporters. You get access to an exclusive monthly bonus episode, so feel free to check that out. The link will be in the show notes below. Thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate all the support, and I will talk to you guys next time.